Joe Joyce has now a mandatory position to challenge AJ for the WBO belt. Consolidated that by beating Carlos Takam yesterday. Joe has a lot of people divided. Some people think Joe is just total garbage. Others think that Joe is even entertaining, and I'm in that box right there. I think Joe is very entertaining. And then there's another section of boxing fans who think Joe is legit the real deal and can win a world title. And will win a world title. I think it all depends who he fights for a belt on that score there. The Juggernaut mask, I don't know what that was.
The fuck is that?
It just look weird. As for BT, riddle me this. You have Josh Taylor doing punditry work on the Joyce TAKAM card, but you do nothing at all about broadcasting his fight, where he won the undisputed titles. Nothing at all, not even a delayed recording. I mean, you could play it now. What is it, 2 months after he's won the belt, you could play it now. But nothing. You have him doing punditry work, but you can't do anything to even put a 10-minute highlight of his title win. Nothing at all. That just seems weird to me. I know he's not a Queensbury or BT fighter, but you've got him on there doing punditry. He's a British boxer, and Frank does have a relationship with Bob Arum. This just seems weird. Josh, a good pundit, but he doesn't play the game. Or he hasn't been schooled or coached how to play the game. I mean, he gets paid for doing that. And to be a pundit, a lot of people just come down on Tony Bellew about this, being a company man, but most of them are company men. He just wasn't playing the game. He seemed very intent on letting the world know that the fighter who does record pay-per-view numbers on the rival channel, Sky, would do damage to Joe if Joe chose to approach a fight with Anthony Joshua in a similar manner that he approached the TAKAM fight. And he made no secret about that. And he wasn't covering it up. He wasn't prettying it up or nothing. The main commentator, Paul Dempsey, he was trying to rein Josh in very subtly and tried to get the panel to focus on the more endearing qualities of Joe Joyce. But the cat was out of the bag by this stage. It was a tad too late. Some people might find that very endearing, though, that you have a pundit who would just call it down the line and not play favourites to the network's roster of boxers. I understand why pundits and commentators may placate to fighters aligned to the network. It's business. But the way things were done previously often has to be shaken up, reinvented, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to appreciate the honesty and straight talking. At times, it's not going to go down well with a lot of the viewers, depending on what the view is from the pundit or commentator, but that's where it's heading. A lot of people say they don't want the plastic shit no more. We'll see how true that is when you get a regular pundit talking like Josh Taylor was talking. Totally unscripted, totally unbiased. Ben Davidson has got a mixed reception with his punditry work. A lot of people weren't impressed. I didn't really notice or take much notice of what he had to say. It just wasn't as interesting as the fights. So I can't make a judgment one way or the other. I can't remember anything he said. So he didn't stand out and he didn't suck totally, I'm guessing. I wasn't overwhelmed, I wasn't underwhelmed.
All I can say to those of you on BT is DAZN have hired Maya JAMA. She looks real good on the eye. She may not know as much about boxing as Ben Davidson, but that girl sure look fly.
Well, that was weird.
But it had to be done. We're not going to stay too long on the Joyce fight because we covered it in the hangout. Them right hooks to the body that swung the fight round for him. Powerful shots. They were literally freezing TAKAM in his tracks. As the rounds passed, TAKAM's work rate decreased considerably and left him a sitting target. Yeah, he probably has one of the worst defenses in the heavyweight top 10, whatever the heavyweight top 10 is. There's so many sanction bodies and so many different names emerging in each sanctioning body, we don't even know what a top 10 is. A lot of people say that Joe Joyce has a great chin. And while he's taken the punches he's had to take pretty well as a pro, what big punches has he really fought? He fought Ian Lewison on his debut, which was ambitious matchmaking, in all truth. But Lewison was a banger at domestic level. Joe's never fought a fighter with a losing record, credit due to him. But some of his best victories, like the Bryant Jennings victory, which I thought Joe lost. Bryant is not a big puncher. Daniel Dubois, who was 15-0 when he fought Joe, he's 16-0 now, with 15 stoppages. He's obviously heavy-handed. But again, his competition before and after meeting Joe is relatively limited. So we don't know if he's an explosive puncher or a clubbing puncher, a domestic level puncher, or a world-class puncher. We have no idea right now. But he can hit. But Daniel doesn't have a more proven track record like a Povetkin or a Klitschko like Joshua has faced, or like Tyson Fury has faced a Wilder and a Klitschko. I mean, if Joe approaches a fight like that against Anthony Joshua, willing to take clean right hands from Joshua, how does that pan out? Same with a Deontay Wilder. How does that pan out? There's other people who can bang in the weight class. For what it's worth, TAKAM was ahead on the scorecards. He was bitterly disappointed with Steve Gray's decision to stop the bout. But you know, when you're fighting away from home and you're taking unanswered punches for periods of time, then you're asking for a referee to stop the fight. You're going up against the promotional favourite, the television network favourite, and the crowd favourite away from home. And there you are taking unanswered punches. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's a British thing, because it certainly isn't. If I had to switch the thing around and have TAKAM teeing off against Joe Joyce and Joe not firing back like TAKAM wasn't firing back, would Steve Gray have jumped in right there? Probably not. Probably not. He would have gave Joe more of an opportunity to recover. And I'm not saying that would necessarily make Steve corrupt or in Frank Warren's pocket. But then again, I am saying it. TAKAM is a gatekeeper. A good gatekeeper as well. Does he have enough in the tank to be recycled for Daniel Dubois? Or should we let that one go? Let's say Joe Joyce does get in the ring with AJ. Will he overwhelm AJ with his pressure? Can he match physical strength with AJ? Who has the better chin? Who has the better jab? Who has the better stamina? Who's the harder puncher? I don't think Joe is going to learn defense to the extent he needs to learn it in the heavyweight division until he's hurt really bad or knocked out. There's no telling how long Joe's going to have to wait for a title shot at a WBO strap. I think his team and Frank Warren are going to play it cautiously until an opportunity opens up. I mean, the situation in boxing is a bit crazy. A unified champion like AJ is just inundated by mandatories everywhere. That's ridiculous, you know, like the mandatory system would make more sense if there was one champion with one set of rankings. I mean, they're treating AJ like he's three different fighters. He's doing the workload of three men with three separate sanctioning bodies. I mean, he fought Pulev, who was an IBF mandatory, late last year. He's going to fight Usyk in September this year. Now, they're talking about Joyce already. The WBA, no doubt, will be demanding something soon. The WBA stripped Lennox Lewis in 2000 for not taking on John Ruiz. Don King took John Ruiz's mandatory position to court and won. But it's not that Lennox was ducking John Ruiz. He had a mandatory against Michael Grant for the WBC belt that came up first. So Lennox fought Michael Grant, got stripped of the WBA belt. The WBA, embarrassed by an undisputed champion losing one of his belts outside the ring as opposed to in it, they came up with the super champion, which wouldn't force a unified champion into trying to fulfill so many mandatory obligations from so many sanctioning bodies. And it could have been a good thing, but they just got greedy for sanctioning fees, demanding that super champions face mandatories. You know, like AJ had to fight Povetkin, who was the WBA's mandatory challenger in 2018. They obviously gave him time to try and finalize an undisputed fight with Wilder, but Wilder, however, didn't sign the contract saying there's no date and venue, but then signed a contract with Fury without a date and a venue. One of the many contradictions from Team Wilder in the negotiations with Anthony Joshua. The super champion, I guess, was the WBA's convoluted idea, like the WBC, to have a franchise champion who wouldn't be weighed down by mandatory obligations. But it's failed, hasn't it? I mean, now they've got Anthony Joshua, the super champion, the world champion, Trevor Brand, the WBA gold champion, Robert Helenius, and the champion in recess, Manuel Charr. What's going on? Now, Don King used to be tight with the WBC. Let's say late 70s, early 80s, and onwards. But then when we got to the year 2G, when Lennox was undisputed champion, seemed like he had the WBA in his pocket a little bit. And I think it was just as much his decision as the WBA to get Lennox stripped. I don't think Don wanted John Ruiz to fight Lennox Lewis. I don't think he did. You ask why? Well, Ruiz is signed to Don King, and at this stage, Evander Holyfield is rolling with Don King. So he's going to make a vacant title fight for that WBA belt with Ruiz and Holyfield. Added to that, Lennox would have kicked John Ruiz's ass. I mean, what did Don do eventually? He had a 3-fight series with Ruiz and Holyfield, which no one really wanted to see. Holyfield was washed by this stage hit. The first fight, Ruiz clearly won. They gave it to Holyfield. The second fight, Ruiz won, and they gave Ruiz the verdict. So this led to a third fight, which was a split draw. So Don was determined to stretch this out as much as he could. And this is what I've been saying for a long time. The promoters and the networks are controlling the big money. The sanctioning bodies don't have money like that. And they're pretty much controlled, therefore, by promoters and television networks. The promoters, to sell their product, will trick the unwitting members of the public by saying, I'm selling you this competitive fight with the two best fighters in this weight class, and this sanctioning body is going to sanction it. But the truth is, it's Don King, Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, who are deciding who's going to fight for whatever titles. That's the truth. The sanctioning bodies, the commissions, and all the boards are paid for. They don't have money. They rely on promoters, television networks, to survive. When Simon Jordan was taking Mauricio Sullivan to task, Mauricio had to bail because Simon Jordan is not in the boxing world. He's not a paid-off media member. Let's not forget the media are paid off as well. And in the UK too. But it's really bad in America. So all of a sudden, Mauricio is talking to this English dude, is basically asking Mauricio Sullivan, how are you sanctioning two fights at once? Tyson Fury and Wilder, and Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Surely as the sanctioning body, you give clear instruction on who's fighting who. Mauricio went out of his way to let us know that Dillon will not be mandated until July the 24th when Fury fights Wilder for the third time. He later said he never heard anything about a cancellation when the July 24th date passed and we didn't get Wilder and Fury free. All of a sudden, it's AJ and Fury. He didn't say, oh, no, Fury can't fight AJ. He's got to fight Wilder. He didn't say that. He seemed to let the promoters control the whole situation and the arbitration. What's going on? Who's sanctioning who to fight who? Mauricio or Bob Arum? Let us know. No, he's basically a puppet, I'd say, for Top Rank and the PBC. And unless you know doping protocol, don't be talking about where's the B sample for Dillon. Dillon was cleared by VADA and UCAD of no wrongdoing. There was no discussion of a substance that he took. It was an abnormal finding, which was more than likely some cross-contamination on their part of testing. And besides, he was being tested by VADA, and VADA cleared him straight away. Why is Sullivan going by what UCAD have to say? UCAD testing is not acknowledged by the WBC. UCAD testing is just Dillon's obligation as a boxer with a British boxing license. It's as simple as that. But no, instead of installing him straight back into his mandatory position, he didn't do it. So that cleared the way for Wilder and Fury free. And then next it was AJ and Fury. So basically, Mauricio has allowed the promoters to string along a sizable amount of boxing fans, like myself, who wanted to see Undisputed, only to get our hopes dashed because he was allowing two fights to trend at one time for the same belt. What sense does that make? I never heard Eddie or Bob come out and say, yeah, we've cleared it with Mauricio. We're going to get undisputed. I never heard that. It seems like Mauricio was trying not to offend either party, PBC, Top Rank, or DAZN. Although, when it comes to deciding that Dillian ain't going to get a title shot, he's very decisive, very instructive. They tried to get Dillian to sign for the PBC to get him a shot at Wilder. That didn't work. He's been bypassed by Dominic Brazil and Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury, who all bypassed him while he was waiting there at number 1. If Crawford and Porter goes to a purse bid, the expectation is that the PBC are going to win the purse bid and it will land on Fox. 24/7, which is a terrible website, really, they claim that Terrence could sign to the PBC. Not so sure about that, we'll see. They're talking about a possible joint pay-per-view venture with Fox and ESPN. They'll have to come to an agreement, though, and put a deal together and not let it go to a purse bid, I would have thought. We've seen the history of Terence Crawford and the PBC's top welterweight, so I believe it when I see him trading punches with Sean. I can't really get too deep into it at this stage here. Could just feel like a waste of energy if nothing materializes from this, whether Sean's the mandatory or not. Conor Benn is now headlining cards, takes on Adrian Granados at a fight camp in Eddie's back garden, live on DAZN this Saturday. Feels a bit weird not having a Matchroom card on Sky. Going to be watching it on DAZN for next to nothing, so that's pretty good. The Kanzu versus Leigh Wood fight looks pretty good for the world featherweight title. This is the man that Josh Warrington was supposed to fight, but it never got over the line. Was that due to the pandemic? I can't remember. Another decent fight is Tommy McCarthy versus Chris Billiam-Smith. Look out for that one. That's for the EBU, European Boxing Union Cruiserweight title, Commonwealth, and the British title as well. So that's the route that promoters like taking their fighters traditionally in Britain. European, Commonwealth, and British, and it's all there, all on the line at Cruiser. That's a good fight. Anthony Fowler takes on Rico Mueller, 28-3-1. Anthony is 14-1-0. He's just had a kid recently. I don't know how good Mueller is. Avni Yildirim is being recycled again to take on Jack Cullen. We saw Yildirim last time out against Canelo. I think he was a little in awe of the occasion as much as he was out of his depth. Jack Cullen has been in some decent fights with the likes of Felix Cash, who shone like a star against Denzel Bentley for the British title not too long ago. Campbell Hatton, we see some improvements. You know what I mean?
I'm a product of nepotism. That's how I got into my dad,
And there is a women's bout between Sandy Ryan and Kirsty Bavington. Sandy will be making her debut. Kirsty is 3-1-2 with 2 knockouts. Not a bad card. Chris Jenkins, he lost his British welterweight title on Saturday to Ekal Esselman. I only saw the stoppage. I haven't seen the whole fight. I wasn't able to get hold of a copy. In all truth, Chris Jenkins should have took on Conor Benn. Frank Warren or, maybe Gary Lockett decided against it. Some boxing fans are calling for a Ekal Esselman Conor Benn fight. Esselman is 14-0, 6 stoppages. That would be an interesting fight. Is Conor looking at domestic titles right now, or is he looking for a gateway by taking on experienced international journeyman, fringe contenders and try and get into shake-up that way? I don't know. Because there's not just Ekal looking for a fight with Conor. You've got the likes of Michael Mickinson. Most domestic 147 pounders want to fight Conor. It's the biggest payday for them out there. Conor Benn, 18-0, 12 stoppages, stands at 5'8". Granados stands 5'9", and has that long 74-inch reach. They didn't say what Ben's reach was. It's nowhere near 74. His record now stands 21 wins, 15 stoppages, 8 losses, 1 loss inside the distance to Danny Garcia, and 3 draws. He's been active. He fought twice last year. Once in Mexico and another fight in America. A majority draw with Jose Luis Sanchez in America and a stoppage win over Arturo Carrillo. After getting stopped for the first time in his career against Danny Garcia in 2019, he took on Robert Easter and lost a unanimous decision and took the whole of 2020 off. Is it a bit of a gamble? I would say Granados is a little better than Samuel Vargas, who Conor dispatched very quickly in one round. Conor also looked good against Sebastian Formella earlier last year, outpointing him over 10. You could say Conor Benn is a product of nepotism, but seems to have more natural ability than Campbell Hatton. It's very early for Campbell, you know. It's very difficult these days. Like, you got David Adilier, who won in the 4th round last week on the Joe Joyce bill, and people were saying he should have finished the guy in 1 round, and before that, he had the controversial fight with Sakalowski, which a lot of people thought he lost. Learning your apprenticeship on social media is difficult. You see, back in the day, when terrestrial television would cover a Frank Warren card, you wouldn't see the whole card. If they were going to go live, they'd go live directly to the main event normally. And if it was a delayed recording, they would edit it and you'd probably see the main event and a couple of supporting bouts, and that would be it. But everything these kids do is being thrust into the spotlight. There's no hiding place. Everybody who's subscribed to BT sees all the bouts. The media see all the bouts. Social media, they normally get a report on the fight or highlights or the actual fight. There's no hiding place, literally. There is no apprenticeship. That's why you hear David Adilier still being asked, does he want to fight Nathan Gorman? What for, really? You're not even 10-0 yet. 24 years of age. That's very young for a heavyweight. Very young. And I hold my hands up because I've never been impressed with Nathan Gorman. I was saying, yeah, David would batter Gorman, and he still may well do, but I think they should hold the brakes on this kid right now after the Sokolowski fight. It is what it is. You know, the likes of Johnny Nelson lost his first 3 fights. But you try and find them fights online, they were on small hall cards, out of the spotlight. And that's how a lot of pros all around the world started their careers, on small hall shows, out of the spotlight, learning their trade. Put the camera in their face all the time so they think they're a star. And I think the likes of Anthony Joshua, even the Lawrence Okoli and a few others, have made it look a little more easier than what it is to get to world-class level relatively quickly. And not every kid can do that. Joshua became a world champion in 4 years. It took Tyson Fury 7 to 8 years. Okoli, he became a world champion in 4 years after the Olympic cycle in 2016. It took Johnny Nelson way longer than that. It actually took Johnny Nelson 13 years as a pro to become a world champion. I'm on BoxRec now. It took him 3 years to become British champion. His first attempt against Carlos de Leon, he failed in 1990. Horrible fight for Johnny. Horrible fight. It was a split draw. It took him a long time to get the public's trust back and the media's trust back, after that fight there. Good win against Marcus Bott in Germany. He won the European title. Bott tested positive for steroids, I'll never forget that. Went to America and challenged James Waring for the IBF world title. Lost another 12 rounds, another poor performance. His confidence was really low. And Norbert Akasi, who was a big puncher, he stopped him after that in France. Outpointed by Corey Sanders next. Not such a bad result in hindsight. He moonlighted at heavyweight as well, fighting all around the world. And eventually he got there against Carl Thompson, controversial stoppage in 1999. Hard apprenticeship, very tough apprenticeship, but when he did get the belt, he never lost it in the ring, did he? He retired as WBO champion in 2005. Held it from 1999 until 2005, 6 years. Apprenticeships like Johnny Nelson are a thing of the past for British boxing. You won't see too many kids going through all that to get a world title today. They'll quit way before they even get there. The entitlement threshold is too high for kids these days. We're living in an era where you've got programs like Love Island, which is the bastard child of programs like Big Brother, where people are just lounging around the place doing nothing, looking to get famous. There are no more Brendan Ingalls. who can help develop that kind of resilience in a kid like Johnny Nelson. Johnny had serious confidence issues, and Brendan basically held his hand, for want of a better metaphor, all the way through it until he became a world champion. Johnny Nelson went on a 19-fight unbeaten streak after losing to the gigantic Brazilian Adilson Rodriguez in Brazil twice. One of the people he stopped was Dennis Andrews. Dennis Andrews is a 2-time light heavyweight champion from Hackney. Johnny's maybe a little older than me, but Dennis is old school, bro. Dennis is the old school. Turned pro in 1978, was pitched in with David Pearce, the heavyweight champion. Got knocked out. Lost a few more on points before that. Eventually he got a shot against J.B. Williamson for the WBC title, and he won a split decision. Beat Tony Simpson. Lost his belt to Thomas Hearns. Went over to the Kronk gym. Trained with Manuel Stewart. Had a reputation for being one of the toughest fighters in the Kronk gym, which is no mean feat. And had some good wins over in America. And won the WBC belt against Tony Willis, making him a 2-time light heavyweight champion. This is now, I guess, old school British boxing. You're just not going to see people with records like 49 wins, 14 losses, 2 draws, and fighting all over the place. You know, Dennis relocated to Detroit, not the safest place in the world, but he did what he had to do. There's no, oh, I'm homesick and I can't go. He did what he had to do.